Hello, everybody. Welcome to Trader Minute. It's great to have you on board. And I'm Carl. Thanks for tuning in. Man, it's not a cloud in the sky today out here in Utah, but don't go outside. It's like 5 degrees. Some, Someone was typing in there. They're in southern Florida. I'm sure it's probably 70 or 80. It'd be nice to be down there. But ice cold up here in Utah. So, looking at the market, we've seen this big sell off. The sell-off started right after the open. The open fairly flat, and down she went. Right now, the market's it's off the lows. You can see the lows here, and we talked a little bit about day trading tips yesterday, right? And brought up the old reaction low versus the reaction high. Well, this was the reaction low right here. This point right here, and you can see what happened. It got below it. It battled it for a while, but eventually it just has broke and a little bit off the bottom. So you can see the newer low here. And yeah, Max and AK bring up a good point. Is it time to start looking to buy something? Yeah, I mean, I'd wait until later on in the latter part of the day, see what's going to hold here. But there's an old saying in the market that says buy when there's blood in the streets, right? It's a pretty big day down for the S&P. That could be the case. I've been watching for a lot of setups. So there's a lot of bearish setups out there. Of course, I would be if we're gonna make a challenge trade. We'll see which one's setting up towards the close. But I got some pretty good ideas in mind what we're gonna do. I just want to wait and see how those are looking near the close today. As far as Tesla, our position, it's right down here at the 140 mark. It's right there at the 7 and at the 140 mark. It's held up fairly well compared to all the selling this morning when the market was selling off. It was down $1.20 and then up. I mean, it never went positive. I guess it went positive slightly today, but and then it would be down like 50 cents. It ranged between about $1 down and 50 cents down for a long time, and then has rolled over as the market rolled over pretty hard. This is really holding up fairly well so today. We'll watch this into the close today, and we'll also see what this market does into the close. So there's a daily chart. It's breaking through the 7, and the level here for confirmation of a head and shoulders pattern. And you can look at this and say, well, yeah, there's a little bit of support right there. Yeah, there is. Longer term, and to be a little bit more confident with a head and shoulders pattern, give this 1780. It's a bigger level. It's a more psychological number, and that's what I'd give it. And if that breaks through the level, we could see a little bit more downside. I'm not, in the market, more of a correction type. And I saw an interesting article a little while ago that says that does bull markets ever end in December? Not too often, no. October, September typically have much more bearish bias than December's. December is not typically bearish throughout past history. So it's a big day down. What's moving out there? And I've got a lot of comments here. He said, Carl, how do you stay so calm about things? How do you stay calm? What really comforts me, and I've thought a lot about that because I try not to let things get to me in the market. I just try to keep a level head. And I think one of the big things out there for me is the technicals. Looking at the charts, seeing what happens. Fundamental moves can change technicals really fast, but the odds of a big fundamental move, if you're on top of things, watching for earnings announcements or any other type of news, they're there, but not that big. So the charts is what helps keep me grounded and keep me intact. I try not to have any type of a bias when I look at charts. I talk to traders at times, and I'll bring up a chart and I say, "Oh, I wouldn't trade that. I've never done any good with that." But if I look at it on the chart, it normally goes about the same way as what the chart says when I get that good setup. I don't have many biases. The biases I do have, you're probably aware of them. One of them is on solar. And this was one, it was a runner up. It wasn't a top three because I just didn't like solars a couple days ago on Monday. But it's getting some follow through. but solars, I even saw an upgrade on a solar stock today, and I'm thinking, oh, there you go, there's solar, getting one of the stocks getting an upgrade, but this still looks weak, and I just haven't had a lot of luck with solars. The only other type of a bias I have, and it's not necessarily a bias, just that they're so stinking volatile, is pharmaceuticals. Man, look out! You want to trade a volatile group of stocks, and there you go. I have a friend of mine that would trade covered calls on pharmaceuticals. Yeah, and that sounds extremely dangerous, but him and his brother is a retired pharmaceutical rep and knows the industry. His brother knows the industry inside out, and a lot of these companies inside and out. No type of insider information. He's getting he's retired, but he knows all about that kind of stuff. And then, as a team, they did really well with a lot of those covered call trades. And then they'd get some big time returns on covered calls on some of the pharmaceuticals. You just got to really stay on top of things. It's pretty aggressive. Okay, so some of the stocks out there today. We look at Apple. So far holding up, kind of like Tesla. They're holding up there right around the 7, holding those areas. Nothing really bearish overall. Uh, Google, same thing, holding up. It was running hot to new highs a while ago, and it's pulled back as the market started to pull back pretty hard as well. PCYC. It could, this comes down to the 110 mark, and that's one of those bigger psychological numbers. You might get a bounce out of this. I'd look, if I was going to day trade on this or anything like that, I'd look at the 1 minutes and see what it's looking like around that level. But yeah, I mean, it's a bearish looking chart. It's got some big volumes on it. Yeah, you could see a bounce. I just be a little bit careful. My mood drugs. My mood drugs is a big glass of water. That's for me. Big glass of water. Okay, so some of the stocks we talked about yesterday. Now, there was a couple that were brought up, and the members were asking me, "Man, what do you think, Carl? Should I stay? Should I hold?" One of them was Procter and Gamble. And remember what I said? It's a tough hold. Not a tough hold, but it's one of those hard decisions you got to make. Yeah, it's just under the 7, and that would have been the stop. Yeah, you could say there's a little bit of support at that level, but and look, it went up. Yet on the other side of the coin, the other one was Medtronics, right? Same situation. The big tough question. All right, it's closing below the 7. That's a stop, but it's right there on support. And what did it do today? It just did just the opposite. Went down. And so on those on those, I wouldn't say a tough hold. I mean, on those hard, maybe tough decision is a better word for it. It's a tough call. What can you say? Because there's not anything that's going to tell you what things are going to do tomorrow. We look for the setups with the most predictability of which way it's going to go. After it closes, if it's on a bullish setup, if it closes below the 7, it changes things a little bit, but it doesn't mean the bullish run is over. As you can see, between Procter and Gamble and Medtronic, one went one way and one went the other way. It's a tougher call. And yeah, I mean, you get to make those decisions as traders. It's closing below the 7. Do you exit? Do you stay in? It's not that far below, and it's almost a coin flip as to which way it's going to go. Yeah, there's still a lot of talk on the table about taper, isn't there, Jay? Lots of talk about taper. Jake, the last two that I just talked about, they were on my top three. Medtronic, I left it in the other room. I'll run and grab it. But Medtronic from, I'd have to look at the top three. Not very long ago, and then Procter and Gamble about the same time. If I can show you the day. Oh, actually, it's right here. Medtronic from last Friday, and I believe Procter and Gamble was the same, and they were both bullish calls. Yeah, same time. Same last Friday were these calls and bullish on both of them. One went below the 7 and bounced up. The other one went below the 7 and bounced down. It's just one of those decisions that you get to make when they do that. FedEx. This is the stock we've been watching and waiting for an upside breakout. We were really patient, try not to anticipate it too much, and that little bit paid off. So now we got to watch it and see what it's going to do. You can see the Bollinger Bands fairly tight. They're not the tightest. Let me bring in. They're not the tightest that we've seen. Oh, sorry, got to exit this. Oh, great. Sometimes when I go out, what it does is throw me into a different chart. Okay, but they're not as tight as we've seen. They've been a lot tighter over in this range through here before, right? But this is still kind of in no man's land now. It's dropping below the 7, but the lower Bollinger Band, the bands are still contracting through here. It could come down to the 135, or if it holds and starts to bounce back up through the 7, that would be positive for it. But at this point, it's no, there's nothing here right away. Yeah, Jay, I've got some ideas in mind. I'm looking forward to the next trade as well. I've been looking through a lot of charts, about everything I can think of, and then running through the scans, and they got some pretty good setups out there. Let me show you an interesting one, but it's not going to set up today. I wouldn't think. But Red Hat, I mean, look at that. Look at those Bollinger Bands just collapsing here. They're still down. This will be one on more of a radar type. Not going to happen today, but it's been channeling basically 46 to 47. Looks trying to get through 47. Hard sell. Well, I wouldn't call it hard sell, but there's a sell today back to the lows. Whichever way it breaks, it's got a lot of room to run. The thing I like about watching this one is this. Let me show you. So what's below this channel? There's a gap on the downside it could fill. There's a gap on the upside it could fill. There's not hardly anything below it. If this goes down in the lower band, we're probably going to 44. If this goes up in the upper band, 50. There's just not much there. And that's the thing I really like about this chart. It's just right in the middle. You got a gap below it, a gap above it. You just got to let it show us which way it's going to go. Let it show its hand a little bit of the direction. Now, sometimes these can gap and run one direction or the other and leave us hanging, which is always a bummer, but that's always the chance that you can take if you're waiting for just the right setup. And that's what we want to do. That's what I really like about Red Hat. So we're going to watch that one. Put it all on black. There we go. Long time ago, I used to, in just west of Utah and out on the Nevada borders, a little town by Wendover. And I used to go out there and play some blackjack and occasionally a little bit of roulette. And for us, it was ride the red train. Ride the red train. 50-50. But I haven't done it seriously. It's been 20 years since I've been out and done any type of gambling like that. Not a big gambler. All right, Nike. Now this one has just kind of taken off. Just rolled over hard. This would be, we're about $2 away from the 7. Yeah, it's a nice looking bearish move, but just too far at this point. It's gone too far. The reasoning because if we're going bearish here, first of all, we got a nice uptrend, and this is a very bearish action. You can see the volume's already high for the day. It's breaking through 50 up here on the RSI. Very is very bearish looking, but at this point, buying in puts, well, the puts are going to be pretty high price that we'd want to buy. They're going to be high price, and it's a long ways away from the 7. It could run down, but there's just some consolidation issues that we'd have to deal with, that of a likely some consolidation or even a little bit of a snapback up that direction. All right. Now, if you want to talk the bullish side of things, look at Walgreens. Ran down, had a nice little bottom. I'll see if that holds. It's too early to call because that'd be a little bit of a flag pattern there. Look at the volumes as it came here towards this level, towards the 56 mark, right? They held pretty firm at that level. Doesn't mean this bearish nature is over, but this is a pretty strong move for it, closing up above the 7. If I put on the vibe signals out there, sorry, the vibe, not the signals, but the vibe averages here, yeah, this would be considered a bull vibe entry. Nice little candle here, and in a day when the market's selling, that's pretty strong action. The thing that has me concerned a little bit now, yeah, the market's selling off pretty hard, but a lot of times this year this just turns into opportunities to buy. And someone mentioned in here, yeah, that maybe it's a good time to it's setting the market up for a Santa Claus rally into the year. That the funds out there are still doing some window dressing this time of year, so I wouldn't be surprised. Now, the level again, 1780 for me would confirm a head and shoulders pattern. They've been fairly accurate on the market. Yeah, there was kind of a smaller one here, and this would be a pretty small one that we see. There's a pretty small one at this point. It's not a perfect head and shoulders pattern, but it's got all of the same principles of one. And once it broke through the confirmation area, which is basically the valleys between the peaks, I'll always go the lower of the two. You can see over here, well, the lows were a little bit higher than over here, but I always give it a bigger number to break through. If you get the details, you could say, oh, well, that's the area where it needed to confirm, but I always give it a bigger number. I don't go just by the exact lows like there. I give it a little bit bigger number there, and if it breaks that, then it can go for a little while. And you can see there was some follow through there. You don't get a lot of these head and shoulder patterns on the market. When you do, okay. AK says that Nike announced a dividend increase. Yeah, that's typically a pretty good sign. Pretty hard sell. But let's look at Facebook. It's above 50. Well, it got above 50. It's just flirting with that level, still above the 7. Overall, there hasn't been any real strong selling. It's been hit and miss. If I go over to, let me show you here at FinViz. What I do a lot in the FinViz, and you guys have seen me do this on here before, is I'll bring up this market carpet, or the heat sensor as they call it, just to see what's going on out there. And look at the consumer goods area. Technology getting burned, financials getting burned, healthcare for the most part getting burned, utilities fairly flat. About the darker the colors, it means they're fairly flat. Industrials getting burned, basic materials getting burned. Now services start to see a little bit more green, a little bit here. Consumer goods, really, they're holding up some of the best. Coca-Cola's, Pepsi's, Procter and Gamble's, Colgate, Kimberly, Philip Morris. A lot of them holding up fairly good. So these are the stronger areas of the market right now. If the market tries to head back up, well, guess what's going to push up pretty quick are going to be the ones that had some strength today. Those would be some of the bigger movers. Okay, so that's always something that I'll go to look at during the day and see what's moving out there, if anything. Yeah, you're right. Bleeding from a kidney wound. Ouch. Some of the other stocks, Adobe. Now, Adobe here is not any type of a vibe. You look at this through the eyes of a trend writer. It's really close. Really close. If it's finished down in that lower band, breaking that 55 today, if it closed near the lows of the day, it'd be a nice looking bearish setup. Yeah, there's a little chart pattern here as well, if you want to call it. It could be a little double top pattern. Now, for this pattern to confirm, I'd give it 55. You could say the bottom's way up here. I'm going to give it a bigger price point and see there's some support, well, resistance over in this level, which is typically going to become a new support level. So if it broke that level, then the downside here is in play. It could come down towards the 53 level. The bottoming from this little area right here is where that could go. But the bands are starting to expand. If it closed down in that level, hey, not a bad looking setup. Just reading through the chats. Twitter. A lot of talk in the chat room about Twitter today. It's a little doji pattern. Now this is such a new stock. I even hate to bring up little candle patterns. There's just no history here to run off of. But typically a doji like that, just it represents an area of indecision. It doesn't mean it's going to go down. Doesn't mean it's going to go up. It's just a battle. The bull's trying to take it higher. The bear's trying to take it down. At this point, if it closed right there, it could go down. It could just keep going up. It's a tough call. And as far as trading this, I'm going to give this thing a few months before, 2 3 months, let it get some history under its belt before I really look into it too much. Yeah, Baidu had a nice run yesterday, a little bit of a pullback today. If I was in the trade, if it closed inside the upper band, I'd get out. That's what I do on Baidu. Oops. EMC. Now this is another one. This one's been channeling for a while here, and basically the channel is between 24 and 2350. You can see that's also support from over in this range. So a break at this point, if it closed down near the lows today, would be pretty bearish for the stock. And if you look a little bit longer term, if I go back a year, the next leg lower here could take it probably another dollar down is where I'd see this going. And for the $23 stock, that's a pretty decent move. But oops. All right, someone take away my keyboard. Lows, it's got a little bit of a pattern going on here, a little candle pattern. It come down to a low, it shot off that as it trying to set a higher low here. This would be, if it closed right here, it could be a three methods rising candle pattern. If it closed, something in this range today or the next day or so after going flat like this, coming back, it's going to be a very bullish move for lows. But that's an if. And again, since the market's selling off today, to see this thing really kind of holding its own up there is just not that bad. I mean, it's a pretty bullish sign, but there's nothing there yet. Harley was brought up. Yeah, Harley today, looking at this technically, where's prior resistance? Well, right there at 68. Coming back to retest the level, coming back towards the 7. It's a pretty sharp pullback. It's on lighter volumes, but sharper pullback. A bounce back up off that 7, if you get it in the next day or two, it would be a bull vibe signal all over again. When this one on my top 3 was right here on a bull vibe. And if I bring in I'll show you what I was looking at exactly on that day. Got all the averages there. Moving up. Strong push above the 7, above these highs right there. Nice looking bull vibe signal. And it went. That's a nice follow through. Himax Technologies. So looking at this chart, indicators are rising. The MACD is rising. You got the rate of change rising as well. Would be a really strong signal. This one yesterday technically was a trend rider bear signal. It closed right at 11. Had some pretty decent volumes. Look at the volumes today. Really nice volumes. This is a pretty strong chart. If it closed and formed, you know, a candle pattern like this, something like that, it's going to be a longer doji, a long-legged doji, whatever you want to call it. I would hesitate to getting in. If I'm in the trade, I don't know if I'd get out, but right here, but a move back towards the highs into the close, very bullish for this. That's what you'd want to look at. They've got some big volumes and if you saw a push back towards the highs, that last hour, half hour of the day would be very bullish on this chart and on the stock, and likely going to run higher. Yeah, and this is another one where you see the market selling off. It's off the highs of the day, but still the market's down 12, and that stock's holding its own. It's pretty positive. With Prudential, okay, you got the vibe trend in motion here, where you've got all the averages rising, a little bit of negative here on the indicators. You don't see that MACD, but it's been down here for the last few weeks. But a strong signal here, it's got to push up through 90. I'd want to see this consolidate around this level and then have a day where you see it push up through that $90 level and above these highs from over here. That would be the bullish sign you're after. Right here is not a bullish sign. If I was in a trade bullish right now, if it closed below the 7, I'd exit. Some early signs of weakening. You got the high here, and then it's holding at a lower level, about the $89 level. It pushed below the 7. Really, it closed below 88 would be a little bit bearish, but it's got such a nice uptrend intact. But Whole Foods, yeah, this is up too, but not one of the stronger looking ups. It's moving above the 7, but that just means short-term bullish. I'd need a little bit more move. I mean, here's the bottom. Well, not calling a bottom here. It still is locked within a descending wedge pattern. I would need a stronger move. For me to get somewhat bullish, it's got to go up here above 57 before I'd get too bullish on it. That first cross above, you can see the last time it crossed above over in this range, it just didn't go anywhere. So it's crossing above today. And really, the stock's more in consolidation mode, so I'm not really trusting crosses above the 7 here. To me, it's got to push up through the 57, and then it could run up towards probably the 59 area. Would be the next stop, but it's got to do that before I'd get too bullish. I forgot to mention that. I looked at the other top threes. Well, let's go through the top threes from yesterday right now. So Mosaic, near the lows of the day, down. Now it's closing below, well, the 100-day moving average. It's not one of the bigger moving averages, but it's closing below that. If I bring in the trend rider, remember this was a trend rider bear signal. And this is another group, and someone mentioned that this morning when they popped out. I think it was Frank, where he said, "Hey, I finally made some money on Mosaic." This has been a tough group over the years, but the thing that I really liked about this setup, and the reason I put it on my top 3, because I thought the same thing, a tough group. It had everything going for it. And when I see everything going for it in technicals, with the exception of the solars, which I'm still very leery of, you look at this volume shot right here. Oops. Look at that shot of volume on Monday of this week. Monday of the week, we had a big shot of volume. That volume right here has made me more confident to put this on a top 3 yesterday, and it was still in the lower band, still closed down towards the lows. That's what made me put it in. If that volume didn't have that big volume spike right there, that's a pretty decent spike on this one. These volume bars are really skewed because of this giant bar right there, but that's a big shot. That's what made me put it on, and it's getting some follow through today. So I try to keep biases out of it. Solars is the one. I've had just, I'm not kidding. It's just the ultimate setups, bullish or bearish on solars, and the next day it goes the other way. It's like, huh? Technicals? What? So I'm not a big fan of the solars. Yeah, no, the time I didn't put first solar on my list is the time it got some follow through. Right? First solar, it still looks really bearish, but I thinking about it on Monday and just avoided it. And I told you it was on the radar, but it was a stock that I wouldn't trade for that reason. Yeah, I mean, first solar, I mean, it looks really, really weak. It just, those stocks. Yeah, I knew I was going to do that. I knew RD wasn't a stock to look at. Thanks. You guys jumping into that? Okay, okay. Okay, Tesla here, off the lows. It's back up above 140, just right there on the 7. I'm going to watch it today. If we do anything, as you know, it's going to be that last hour, half an hour of the day. If we decide to make a move here, going to be looking for a new challenge trade. Been showing you a lot of the stocks I've been looking at. We're going to see how those look into the close today. Let me go back over here and let's look at the S&P. Yeah, there's the S&P. It's off the lows. Fair value is about 1, so it puts the market down about 12 right now. And this is, you can see a little bit of support for it over here. It might hit it as a little bit of resistance, but we'll see what this does. I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a rally into the close today. Yeah, there was a little bit of blood in the street, and Max and AK, yeah, you guys called it. That's about typically this time of throughout 2013, pretty much, it's those big days like that have been the time to go out and buy. Now, I always remember my ultimate story. One of my ultimate stories about Jeff, got a lot of them, but one day, and this was during the financial crash, and one day the market was down like 400. The S&P's down like 40 or 50. It's ridiculous. And Jeff, I was sitting by him. We were working at a company, and sitting by him. And he goes, "Man, I'm buying." He goes, "There's blood in the street. I'm buying." And guess what? The market did today. It went up like 300 points, and he scored. And that impressed me about Jeff. But there's a lot that impresses me about Jeff. Okay, other stocks out there to be watching. Well, back to the top three of yesterday. This one just holding its own. It's been up all morning, slightly down, I guess, at one point. It's just been holding its own. And really, when the market's selling off, to see this holding its own, positive sign. If I was in it, I wouldn't worry about it. You could say it's a little doji. I wouldn't worry about it. It's not really in that great of a position to see a doji. I'd want a little bit more of a run up or a run down into a doji. And they're not all that accurate. And the other one was KeyBank. Same thing, holding its own. It was up earlier, down 2 cents. It's holding its own. And with this sell off, that's pretty strong. Swing trader Jeff's a little bit under the weather. He's also been working on a lot of business. We got a lot of new affiliates that want to join up with us. So under the weather, yet still working. He's just been off here a little while and getting a lot done. And so, yeah, I mean, I still talk to him. We chat. I talk with him in the afternoons, looking for trades, and sometimes throughout the day as well. We're texting back different trades ideas to look at. So another stock we looked at yesterday. It was a runner-up. The top three was Netflix. Now, same with this. It was up really pretty strong this morning. Still up $3. Um, Pretty strong to see. It just sold off when the market went down hard. This sold off a little bit, but it's still bullish in nature. Okay, CSX that's taking a little bit of a beating. Now this brings us to a gravestone, and I didn't see that yesterday. If you guys saw that in the close, it's a gravestone. Gravestones are one of the more accurate patterns. It doesn't mean this nice uptrend is over. It just means short-term weakness, and it got it. It got some follow through today. Other type of candles here. I always look back just to see. It's not a gravestone, but it has the same principles. That would be what a lot of people would call a falling star pattern. Very close to dragonfly, but not a perfect setup either. So this one's fairly accurate. Now you look at that one. Well, what happened here is you got a dragonfly, and the next day you got a gravestone. And typically when you see that, those will cancel. They'll cancel each other out if you ever see that. They're pretty rare to see one. When you see one, it's rare enough. To see them back to back is even more rare. Some of the other areas getting hit. Johnson & Johnson. You look through a lot of these stocks here. Yeah, look at Hershey's trying to hold its own, but still, there's nothing there. Any type of a trade setup. Potash, this has been channeling recently, and this was always the high flyer, and it's kind of come off the mountain. So you got a $2 channel right here. A breakdown below here. If it went down, so I'll just draw it in there. If you get a candle that's breaking down into that lower band like that, the stock's probably headed towards the 29 level. $1.50 lower, and this stock, that's a pretty nice move in the option, but it's got to do that. It's got to prove that it's breaking the band. If it does this type of action today, then bets are off to the downside. You want to wait for a little bit more confirmation. It's just barely below it. I'd like to see a bigger break, and if I could get some volume out of it, you might get it, but it would even make that a little bit more appetizing. Where a $2 channel right here, again, could take it $2 lower. It's what it's saying. Now, if this bounces back up at this point, it's probably going to 33. Last time it didn't make it to 33, which tells me there's a little bit more chance that this could break down below, but it did the same thing over in this range too. So it's a tough call. It's got to prove to me that it's going to drop below there, drop into the lower band. If you get a little bit of volume suggesting that, it's probably going to 29. But it's got to, they've really got to confirm. Jeff, a couple questions on Jeff. Where is he these days? He's been under the weather a little bit, but he's also working the business, and he's got a lot of new affiliates that want to join up with us and start marketing and stuff like that for our site. And so he's been getting out there, even though it hasn't been filming that great. He's still getting out there and working on the business, and he'll come in here, and I still meet with them every day via phone or text, the different setups, and still there. So yeah. RD, good question. RD asked when I scan for stocks, do I scan for just S&Ps or all stocks? Let me show you. Let me show you our scans. And I've got a lot of questions on the setups and how to set up these scans. There is a video that is on, if you go back in the video library to November 19th. I looked this up last night because I found an email that had been overlooked for a while. So I looked it up. It's on November 19th, and it's called Chart Scans. It's going to show you how to set up the scans that we use. And just pause it on the screens. Now, so here's the scans. We've got a lot of scans, mainly the ones that I'm looking at, the 7-day moving average crossovers, bullish and bearish. I look for those. And then the vibe and the vibe bull and bear. These right here are pretty much S&Ps. So let me show you the one of these scans. So I just go to the bear and run it, and you can see. Oh, sorry. Let me back out of that. Not that. Let me go to edit scan so you can see. Here's what it is. This is a vibe bear. The vibe bear setup. You can look at this video, you can look back at that other video and pause it as well, and pause it on this as well. But you can notice here the group we're scanning here is the S&Ps. That's typically what we're going to scan there. If you take it off, you get man, on a bullish day you get all kinds of them, but I like the S&Ps. And then go back here to the trend riders. Here I scan for all of them during the day. I'll scan for all of them. And you notice if I go here to the scan, it's just stocks that are traded here in the United States. Any of them. I can change that really easy, and when I put in the triggered stocks list at the end of the day, I come down here and just put in the S&Ps. Okay, but that's the scans. Again, if you want a full video on that, it's 17 minutes into the video on December 19th, the one that says chart scans. 17 minutes in is where you're going to find it. If you just take it right to where Jeff talks about setting up these scans and what we do with that. So thanks for bringing that up. Tesla, okay, now down $1.87. So it's coming back for us a little bit here. This still, I mean, all we need is a push up higher here, and it's headed up towards our price target. If I go down, you can see that everything's rising. Indicators and everything, they're still rising here. If this gets dragged down, it's because the market drags it down. There's no bearish signs here on Tesla. It would be a market thing. Let me go back here to the trend rider. I mean, everything's still in play. The bands are about ready to expand, which means when we do that, get that break to the upside, it could go right into the bands and run up higher, maybe up towards the filling of this gap area like that. Price target here, I believe, is about 155. So okay. Let's see what time we got here. Anybody else got any stocks they want to look at? Just run some of the ones I've been watching here. Now, Bed Bath Beyond, it's been in this big channel. It's got the signs of wanting to break. This would not be the day, most likely. No, I don't see it here today, but you can see the channel range is basically 78 to 76. But you notice here we're starting to form an ascending triangle, which are typically bullish continuations, suggesting this to break higher. But I really want to see this stock after that type of bullish action. I want to see it one of these days where it's bouncing up through the 7 or off of the 7, closing up into this range. See, right now the bands are still contracting right now, so it's not really suggesting much of a breakout, at least today. But you get a move like that, a strong push above it, after you got a flag pattern here, the odds of this breaking up running towards 80 is really high. You just want to see that. That little bit of a flag pattern has been going on from way over here. It's a pretty big pattern. And some people will look at this and say, okay, well, what's the difference from where this pennant started? Yeah, you could say 75, 78, so you could push another $3 higher. In my opinion, you got 80 right there. 80 would be a price target. If it looks strong through 80, then I might hang on to it. But I'd sell it somewhere around the 80 range if we get that and when we get it. But that's another one we're watching and looking for a PF. Nice work if you got BRKA. I was going to say, you're buying lunch today, dude. Or dudette. Sorry, whichever. Yeah. Yeah, Macy's. Nice looking chart. So we get the great earnings over here. Big earnings and run a lot higher. And now what do we get? Well, we got a little bit of a higher low here. This is one of those, yeah, right. That's pretty bullish price action when you play off of an announcement like that to see that. Of course, we're looking at hindsight, and I could have said, yeah, we got in right there and out right here, right? I won't do that with you. But now we got a higher low locked in. Look at the bottoms here. Oops. Wrong button. I see the Bollinger Bands crashing in on it. That's interesting. That's saying it might not go up much past 53 as those bands are getting in. Like, see those bands? They run up towards the 53 range is likely the next level of resistance for it. But looking at through the eyes of a vibe, it's some early signs of weakness. This is down a little bit, MACD's down a little bit, but that doesn't mean this thing can't just take off. But it's a very bullish looking chart overall, because you can see the bottoms right here. Every time it got down to the 51 range, it held it and bounced up off of that. It tells you there's a lot of buyers just above 51 there, and now it's pushing up through the 52 mark. Pretty strong thing. I'd be a little bit cautious up into this range. That's right where that band's going to be, that contracting band, and that's where some resistance could come in. It doesn't mean it has to be resistance for it. It just says the odds are suggesting it. That could be resistance. Man, that's a nice looking chart. Yeah, with NUE, if you look at, let me zoom in. Look here. Oh, the volumes are just off your screen. It's got, let me go back out and get those in your screen. So the volume's just off your screen. Oh, you can see it now. It's got really light volumes on the sell-off like this. But for me, if it did close below that 7, I'd get out. You can see you got a high, and then you got, if this is it, a higher low. Sorry, a higher low set in. It closed below a 7. It just puts more bearishness into this type of a setup. And at that point, if it closed right here tonight, that'd be another one of those testers, right? It's right on the 7. Do you hold it? Do you get out? A clear move below the 7 for me is an easier call. Like Microsoft, it was clearly below the 7. Was a pretty easy call. All right, it's out. We're out. But here, where it's right on the 7, what do you do? I mean, is it going to hold the 7? Is it going to drop below? It's a pretty bearish candle, though. But it might hold and bounce right back up. What you could do is exit. If it closes below the 7, exit. And if it triggers another signal, to me, if it starts to break up above 53 there again, it's probably headed much higher. But let's look at trader. I mean, the trend writer for this one. Yeah, I can see what you're looking at here with Morgan Stanley. It's dipped below the 7. It keeps bouncing off of the 7 there, lower and lower. Yeah, this could run down toward, it's the 30s right there, but if this runs down, I'd like to see it run past about this low right here. But it's a bearish looking setup. If it had stronger volumes, since we've been in an uptrend here, the volumes make it a little bit more convincing to me that it's going to break through the 30 mark. The volumes are a little bit light right now. Now, I think you could find better setups than that one, but it's pretty bearish. But for me, for a trend reversal, I'd like to see the volumes pick up a little bit more than where it's at. Yeah, so for NATO, here's another channeling stock between 90 basically and 88. So it broke out at a couple days ago here. Last Friday it broke out. The retest has definitely failed. It closes here. Now the volume is extremely light, but that's a pretty ugly sell-off, way below the 7, being easy. Now, odds are it's going to go back to 88. But you get a break here, either lower or higher, up into the bands, up or down into the bands right here, would be a very nice move. It's a couple dollars there. Could take it down towards 86 or up towards a 92. If it gets above 90 and can hold a level, I'd give it higher than 92. It's probably going to have a nice move, but right now it's still got to prove to me which way it's going to go. And even had some big bearish days in this range right here. Stay right here, man. Very bearish. Runs up, runs down. It never broke 88. Just kept going. So it's got to prove to you which way it's going to go. And they could even retest like it did over here when it hit one above 90. It came back and retested it. It failed. Okay, so one last look here at Tesla. Off the lows of the day, it's sitting down about $1.70 right now. And if we do make any type of changes, it'll be the last hour of the day. And looking to enter a trade, got some in mind. I've showed you some of them. Got others too we're watching. But I'll be on chat with you. If you have any questions, just let me know. You can reach me through email as well, carl@traderminute.com. That's with a C. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.